Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from United Way of Greater Rochester and the Finger Lakes, serving the community for more than 100 years, dedicated to creating a future where everyone's basic needs are met so all can thrive. More at unitedwayrocflx.org. And Labella Associates, dedicated to the pursuit of partnership for more than 40 years, offering services in the development of buildings, infrastructure, environmental, and energy projects. Labella, powered by partnership. LabellaPC.com.
From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Well, our connection this hour was made on Saturday, June 7th at Ontario Beach Park in Shalott. The popular destination is home to festivals and various seasonal activities, but in recent weeks, it has made headlines for different reasons. A series of incidents, including fights among teenagers and a shooting, have led to a number of new and upcoming safety features at the park. For one, there is an increased presence of law enforcement officers at the beach, leading to, well, a lot of support among parkgoers, maybe sometimes mixed reaction, and maybe just a need for more information. Some have told local news outlets that the police presence makes them feel safer, makes them feel like they can go there with their families. Now, others have said on the news recently, you might have seen, they want to see less police there. So we're going to talk about that. Despite the different opinions about the presence of law enforcement, one message is clear. Park goers enjoy the park and its amenities, but there are ongoing concerns about safety, especially at night, especially on summer nights. This hour, we're joined by local leaders to discuss what to expect at Ontario Beach Park, both this summer and beyond. Our guests are going to talk about new safety measures, upcoming events and programs, and they're going to answer your questions. And I'd like to welcome our guests to the studio. Captain Greg Bello with the Rochester Police Department is with us. Captain, nice to have you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Next to Captain Bello, I want to say Chief, but it's Rich Tantello. Rich is the Director of Public Safety for Monroe County. Hello.
Good to see you. Thank you.
5 years it's been, by the way.
It has.
Do you want to remind listeners where you were before 5 years ago?
I was the chief of police in the town of Irondequoit. In many instances, we had social justice conversations on this very program.
Chief, I think I would have guessed it was no more than 2 years since you've been out of the force. So
it does fly by.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Nice to see you. And we've got legislator Aversha Roman with us, the president of the Monroe County Legislature and serving in District Number 26 in the Ledge. Welcome. Thank you for being here as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Listeners, if you want to share your thoughts, I'm very curious to know if the beach is a destination for you in the summer or all seasons. Is it a place that you feel good being with your families? What would change your opinion about that? You can share your thoughts on our various platforms. And Captain Bello made a point before the program began. We are going to talk about the beach, but we also are going to talk about issues that you might see at the beach that also happen elsewhere that require some kind of perhaps law enforcement response or community response. And it's not just exclusive to the beach. So there's a lot to cover here. Let me start. I'm going to go back here, Captain Bello. We go back to Saturday, June 7th. That got all the attention. But that's not the first time you've had an event like that, or an incident like that, a series of incidents like that at the beach. Take us through RPD's assessment of how to staff up there, what a typical staffing level is, perhaps how that might be changing or if that has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically as the summer goes on, we assign our patrol units have the beat cars that work up that way are always patrolling up in that area. And then also we assign a special events detail and through our patrol sections have a detail up there to have an increased presence during the warmer days, the warmer months when the beach is crowded. So this year, unfortunately, we had a couple incidents up there with some teenagers coming up and fighting and then getting on some RTS buses, going back to the transit center and then fighting some more at the transit center. So it kind of, it kicked off. We typically plan around the festivals. We plan around the holidays. And so, this happened. It was just happened to coincide on Senior Skip Day. That happened to also be Concerts by the Shore Day up there. And unfortunately, a group of kids that had nothing to do with Concerts by the Shore went up and ruined a really nice event. So our goal is to make sure that these events are not ruined. Rochester is a city of festivals, a city of events, and our job is to make sure that these events go off safely, and we are super focused up there. So we've increased the number of officers up there significantly, not just during special event time of Concerts by the Shore, but also during the weekends, the hot weather time, and working with our partners at RTS and just really putting a presence up there to prevent this sort of thing from happening again, because we want people to be safe when they go to the beach. And so law enforcement serves two practices. Number one, two roles up there. Number one, our presence to make people feel safe, help people feel safe when they're there, knowing that, hey, the police are here, I'm good to go, things will be great. And then number two, if you want to bring trouble, we're going to hold you accountable for your trouble, and we're going to get you if you want to bring that trouble there, and we're going to get you right away before there's issues. And so it's serving that dual practice because we want everybody to feel safe to go to the beach. Concerts by the Shore, it's another event tonight. At least 1,000 people are expected up there again, especially with the warm weather, and we expect that to be awesome, just like last week's was as well.
So let me go over a couple points with Captain Bello before we bring in our other guests here. First, I wanted to tell you what my perception is of what, quote, the public wants. But this is such a sticky question. And I understand that there's never going to be a uniform view on, do you want more police or less? But generally speaking, when you see surveys of every neighborhood in the city, when you see surveys of the neighborhoods that have maybe the highest levels of crime and the highest needs, you will see, and I've talked to people at RIT who do criminal justice data, et cetera, most of the time people are saying we do want more police, not less. Now, we want to be able to communicate with police, we want to have good relationship with police, but we don't want less police, we want more. I'm sure there's some people at the beach, if you talk to, say, yeah, I don't want police around. But my guess is most of the businesses, most of the people there, probably a lot of the families, do want more of you. Is that your perception, and do you feel like you can staff it to the level that they want?
Yeah, so the trick is on that is that we don't want to be overbearing. We don't want it to appear to be a police state up there, though, either, to where somebody shows up, sees 20 officers, and thinks, this might not be a safe environment. Why is there 20 officers here? I don't want to necessarily be here. Or for the businesses, so we're working with business owners. So this is very much in line with what we've been doing at the East End Entertainment District, where we've set up the special event zone and increased our officers. There's going to be some friction at first with some of the business owners because we're not closing it. And there's a misperception that we're closing things, and then that drives business down as well. So we want people to know, we want to get that message out there that all of these businesses are open, right? The different bars, the restaurants, the entertainment venues, the ice cream Abbott's that I grew up going to constantly when I was younger. We used to go to that Abbott's all the time. All of those businesses are open. They're super safe. That's why we're there, to make sure that those businesses and those residents that live up there, everybody can walk around, entertain, and have a great weekend, have a great time at the beach, the way it should be. So it's getting that communication out there. There's, somebody thought maybe the parking lots were closed last weekend. It was driving down their business. And no, the parking lots are open. Everything is open up there. Please go up to Charlotte and enjoy. It's going to be a great weekend. Tomorrow, the holiday, is supposed to be gorgeous weather, a perfect day at the beach.
That is the OG Abbott's, by the way. It's the best Abbott's. That one right down there at the beach is, and there's two Abbott's. I know there's one in the port. I get it. I know. Your Virtue was going to say there's one in the port, and there is. You can go there if you want, but the OG is the original.
Yeah. No offense to that one. The one at the corner.
The one at the corner.
Yes.
Right. The constant childhood activity growing up was getting ice cream, walking the pier.
Right across from what are now the pickleball courts at the Roebuck Center. But what the captain is talking about, if anybody heard John Krabowski, who owns Tropics, he told 13 Wham News. He says the police are doing a wonderful job. I think what's happened is between people being scared or people not having the right information, people not what's going on, I think might be deterred from coming down here or knowing that they can park here. So that kind of goes to what you're saying. So what do you do about that to make sure that communication is clear? Hey, you can park here. Parking lots are open. Our presence is to make it safe. Our presence isn't to indicate that it is not safe. I mean, what do you do about that?
So number one, going on shows like yours to let
Okay,
the public
there you go.
know
There's one.
those parking lots are open and everything is open up there for people to go. Number two is we've been meeting with the business owners. Again, just like we do at the East End, we meet regularly with the business owners there. We're continuing to meet with the business owners in Charlotte and work collaboratively on what our plan is. We can't go in there ourselves and say this authoritatively and say this is our plan, this is what we're doing. We have to work collaboratively with all of our partners, the residents, the businesses, and then also at the end of the day, make those safety decisions. So getting that information out there, and then our officers out there, they're directing traffic, they're helping people to park, and that's the point of it. And sure, if there's a problem, we're prepared to shut those parking lots down, but we haven't had a reason to, and we don't anticipate having a reason to, which is why we have such a presence up there.
And it was Haley Everett, general manager of the Bill Grays down there, told WHEC that they've changed their closing time from 10 p.m. down to 9 p.m. on weekends in response to recent fighting. I mean, that's a business decision that they're going to make. Do they talk to you about that, or is that, I mean, do they consult with you? Do they talk about, hey, we're thinking about changing closing times? Do you advise on that?
So absolutely. We work with those businesses. I don't know about Bill Grays specifically, but we work with them of what their concerns are, how we can help address those concerns. So I know we talked with one of the businesses about parking, and so we're employee parking. So we're working with them on some solutions for employee parking. And that's the thing, is working with each business and the neighborhood association of what's the best plan for everybody, not just us telling them what the plan is, but working that collaboratively. So I know our section captain after this weekend, Captain Cornell, was already talking to some of the businesses based upon that feedback. I believe Monday he was already making calls and talking to them, and so there'll be some changes this weekend based upon the feedback that we've heard.
And then, some of the other comments that people made to 13 WHAM and HEC include things like there should be security presence or police presence, but maybe if they go undercover and people don't see them, they won't be as scared. I don't know. I don't know if that's something you can do. You've got an interesting look on your face, Captain, there.
Yeah, no, the point up there is to be a deterrent as well. And you're not going to be a deterrent if you don't know who we are or where we are. We want people, we always put the message out there, see something, say something. And we want people to see the officers out there, a uniformed officer. And so if they're alerted to any sort of trouble, any sort of potential issue, that you've got an officer right there that you can tell, hey, I saw this guy do this or this girl do that, and we can address it right there as a minor issue. And so we want people to see us out there. We want to be a very overt presence up there.
Okay. And to be clear here, the captain also has said, I'm sure many times and before this program began, and we'll talk about it briefly now here, we are going to spend the bulk of this hour on that place. It's a very important place in Rochester. It's a place that a lot of people like to go. But the issues that we've seen in the last month are not necessarily unique to Ontario Beach Park. They happen at other festivals, other places. What do you want people to understand about that?
Yeah, and that's, roving groups of teenagers have been a problem at places other than the beach. And not to say don't go to other places. That's not the direction I'm going with this. But it's not that the beach is a constant problem. The beach has been, since we had those 2 days of issues, the beach has been great. Families out there. There's been bands playing up there. There's all sorts of great activities going up there with zero problems whatsoever. We in this area, and as a police department, we constantly have to work our way through, is that unfortunately there's teenagers that are looking for things to do. And those things to do and they get in groups are not always the most positive things. So we've had this conversation regarding festivals before, like Lilac Festival. And there's been a lot of safety adjustments that have been made at Lilac Festival to keep Lilac Festival running safely. And I think we're 2 or 3 years now without a significant problem at the Lilac Festival. And so it's working through trying to find these teenagers something else to do. So I know like city rec centers are hiring like crazy for this summer. There's all sorts of stuff for your kids to do to keep them out of trouble and then to keep them safe, right? Both ways of looking at it as a parent. Number one is I want to keep my kid from being bored and creating problems, and then also keep my kid out of becoming a victim of some of these problems. And so like rec centers, for example, I worked 3 summers at the Flint Street Rec Center when I was a teenager. It was awesome. So I pushed the city rec centers, not just because I'm a city employee, but that's something that was huge in my life. And so trying to push that upon others, that experience helped me make me who I am. And so to try to push that on others, and the city's hiring hundreds, if not thousands of teenagers to work at the rec centers. That's just one example.
Well, so let me turn to the other panelists here. And Iversha Roman, president of the Monroe County Legislature, some residents have suggested paid parking down at the beach. Do you think that's the solution?
So as a representative for the Charlotte area, I can tell you that the majority of the individuals that I've spoken with do not think that is a good idea.
That'd be too exclusive, like pricing people out?
Yeah, I think it'd be too exclusive. Right now, the beach is open and welcoming to everyone. And I think that's the way that we want to keep it. The multiple conversations that I've actually had about this as I try to problem solve and look for different solutions for the perception of the beach feeling unsafe, right? Because I think Captain mentioned that most of the time the beach is very welcoming, very safe. You see families. I have a 5-year-old. He loves the spray park when it's open, the playground. We go there all the time. I was actually there for Concerts on Shore both Wednesday nights, right? Both nights, a majority of the time felt welcoming, felt fun, the first night was amazing. The diversity of the crowd is something that you don't see throughout the community. So I think we want to continue that. And all of the events, whether it be Concert at the Shore, the jazz at the beach, they really are free for a reason, to ensure that everyone is provided the opportunity to enjoy the amenities of the beach. We don't have a lot of shoreline space here in Monroe County. So I think it's really important to allow everyone the opportunity to park at the beach for free and enjoy the beach and the water. We already have, a beach where people have to pay for. You can go out there and do that for right now, at least.
So what do you think the community wants in terms of involvement? What kind of involvement to maybe eliminate some of the concerns, or make sure that there isn't a summer night where someone's going, I'd love to go down there, but I don't know. I mean, that perception becomes reality. It's tough.
Yep.
What do you think the community wants?
So I think the first response is a community response. So for individuals who are feeling like that, I say please still go anyway, because what we know is when there are families present, when there is a sense of community anywhere, and particularly at the beach, a lot of that is a deterrent to these really horrible actions that have been happening. A lot of them happen sometimes after hours where people are not around, but that is a crime deterrent in itself. Showing up, being there, being present, saying, hey, stop that, or do you know where your parent is? I've done that a few times. I'm like, where's...
You've done that?
Oh, yes, I have. I absolutely have. The spray park is lots of fun, but sometimes I got to be like, where's mommy? And, sometimes they're just right around the corner. So I think first and foremost, the response has to be a community responsive. Continue to make the beach our space, owned by us, and I think that sense of ownership will continue to help the community learn how to respect that area and that space. And then I do believe the community wants to feel safe through public safety. There has been multiple opportunities for individuals to express that want, need, and desire, and it continues to come through very clearly that the community would like a higher police presence in most spaces. But when you have an influx of more people coming to a particular space, I think individuals would like more police there to be able to police, for lack of saying police 16 times, but that particular space. But also for it to be community policing. So, right, police officers are going to be there. Maybe they don't have to be in their cars the entire time. Going out, walking the area, connecting with community members or the businesses, saying hi. I've seen a few pretty awesome social media pictures with officers eating and visiting some of the businesses up there. And as a representative and as a member of that particular community, that is what I'd like to see, and I know others.
I suspect that's what police want to be doing.
Come on, the food is
Come
great.
on, Captain, right?
Yeah,
So
the food is great in up at the beach. Yeah.
So this talk of more police, I'd be remiss. Join therpd.com.
Oh, there you go.
Say it again, Captain.
Join therpd.com because we're about over 100 officers short. So.
I was going to say that, right? I mean, there is a lack of police officers right now, so I truly appreciate the resources being brought down to the beach so that it can continue to feel like a safe space, because the last thing we want as a community is for individuals to say, I'd rather not go there. It's bad for the businesses. It's bad for the investments that have been made. We've made several investments through the initiatives at the county legislature.
Yeah, can you tell us about, I'm reading here, the Monroe County Legislature unanimously approved a plan to enhance security by installing stop arm gates in the park's main lot to control traffic flow and installing 4 exit and entrance cameras.
Yes, so it's not cameras.
Oh,
and
okay.
That was me. By accident, actually saying cameras, unless there's
okay.
updates.
So tell us what is happening.
Yep, exit and entrance gates.
Gates.
Yes.
Okay. And what's a stop? I think I know what a stop arm gates. It's like we see going into the subway. Is that a stop arm gate?
It's the same kind of gate whenever you go into any other
Just
state
like,
park
okay. Yep.
or I think of the parking garage. Really, it's an automatic arm that comes up and down when individuals go into the parking lot.
When they drive in.
Yes. Well, these ones will go down at 10.
Gotcha.
And allow individuals to come out of those parking lots, right? Because there's a lot of questions in regards to how does parking affect businesses. You can park in the parking lot anytime before 10 o'clock, but when the park closes, there will be an actual physical barrier to say that the park is closed. Those individuals who are at the businesses can come out, right? They can come out after 10. But this provides a physical barrier, just like many of our other parks, right? So I think a lot of people don't or haven't noticed that reality, but you go to Greece Canal Park or Seneca Park Zoo, that park, they all have physical
The stop-arm
barriers.
gates, some kind of physical barrier.
Some
Yeah.
kinds. Some of them are manual, and some of them are automatic, like this one. But yes, there's
Okay.
a physical barrier there.
Well, let me ask the captain and the chief what they think. What do you think, Captain Bell, about stop-arm gates there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not going to be every parking lot that's up there.
Yes.
It'll be the 2 county lots.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's a county park that closes. So I'm a pretty avid trail runner, and I got to work around when the gates are open and close. And like Abraham Lincoln Park, for example, where I like to run a lot, the gates lock, right? And if I get there too early on the weekends, they're not open yet because somebody has to come around and open them. And that's normal. That's typical for parks. So to add that here is a great safety measure. And a great security measure to reinforce that the park is closed at 10 o'clock. But at the same time, there are still further away from the beach itself. Those are the city-owned lots, and those are some of the lots that are owned by the private businesses that are still going to be open and open for the businesses, because you've got the beach side of it will close, and that closes like any other park, and the business side of things will stay open and hopefully allow those businesses to continue to thrive up there.
What do you think about some of these changes, Rich?
I think those are great. It's an infrastructure enhancement. It's been identified as a resource that we need. It was in the works for next year, but due to the efforts of our elected officials, it was upgraded to this year, and we'll work on that. You know, thousands of people attend these events, and it gets very busy down there, which is exciting, and we're really happy to see that and that the area is thriving and making sure we do that. So aside from the public safety perspective, it's the idea that people can park there, and then when it's closing time, they have the ability to leave, but no more traffic can go in, so we can manage that appropriately, whatever the situation might be. So as anything over time, you realize what needs to change or be improved, and where do we invest our dollars, and we believe that that's an excellent choice.
Tell me a little bit more about the county's role here. I mean, you've been a police chief, now you're the director of public safety for Monroe County. You got RPD down there. What's the role of the county as you see it?
Well, I can tell you what happened in regards to the county executive bringing his team together. The county parks department operates that park, so we're involved in that. We do have county security resources down there as a result of what we do. We do sponsor the concerts at the shore. And then additionally, what we've done, thinking outside the box and knowing that in many instances there's people of all ages down there, including young people, we've deployed our probation department down there, because this is not a gotcha agency. This is an agency that's working with a variety of people, but let's focus on young people, where they have the ability to interact with our probation officers. They build rapport. They build a relationship with the youngsters as well as their family. They know when curfews are and things of that nature. So it happens on a regular basis where our probation officers are talking to these young people and encouraging them to make sure they continue on that path of success so that they can subsequently move on in a more productive way. So having the ability to use those resources builds on the assistance with everyone in Monroe County. The captain just mentioned the staffing issue with RPD. So the ability to use resources to kind of augment and assist that staffing level is important for all of us.
In a moment, we're going to bring in James Farr. Jim's chair of the Ontario Beach Park Program Committee. Before we get to Jim, let me just in case somebody is hearing this program and hasn't heard conversation about police shortage, what the captain is talking about and what the mayor has talked about, what members of council have talked about, is a roughly 100 officer shortage, which just means you've got those positions unfilled, as I understand it. The mayor's talked about his desire to fill it, but it's not. I guess it's not easy. I mean, I'm sure there's different recruiting that happens. Make sure the audience understands exactly what's going on with police staffing.
Yeah, so staffing, we're about 100 officers short. So we've been short for quite a few years now, and this dates back to around 2019, 2020. We had an academy class of over 50 officers, so right around 50 officers that was ready to go and got canceled. And so putting that 50 behind, we've been falling behind since then. And so we've gone from 50 below to now up to 100 below. So for the most part, our staffing is leveled out. Our attrition rate is roughly equal to our hiring rate. So we're no longer bleeding, but now we're trying to make up that 100, 120 gap that we are now. And we did a reorganization about a year and a half ago, almost 2, in which we eliminated our central section, went to 4-section model, and at least we've gotten to the point now where we're no longer mandating overtime. We're not forcing people to stay. We haven't had to do that in a while, which that's a huge positive. And so it's we're putting some of these overtime shifts out, these special events out, and we're getting them filled. which is great. But we'd love to have more officers because we
How do
pretty
you
much
do that, Captain? Man, why is it hard to recruit right now?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a variety of challenges. Every agency is hiring, and so we're constantly in competition. And then, it's still building out. 5 years ago, there was a huge anti-police movement that swept across our country, and so the opinion of police officers at times, or the outlook towards police officers, is still not fully recovered. And a lot of that is on us, and a lot of that is us trying to rebuild that trust. And I feel here in Rochester, we've done a really good job. We brought in the HBCU Classic last year. The Rochester Police Department itself hosted an HBCU football game, a huge community event that drew thousands of people in the city with our community affairs unit. So we talk about the beach, our horses. We have a mounted unit still. It's going to be up there. The one horse chase is one of my best friends. He's awesome. I'm not a big horse guy, but the horse chase is quite an exceptional horse up there. But our officers are out there. Our community affairs bureau is out there. Our patrol officers are out there walking. Every officer is supposed to walk at least 30 minutes a shift. Go out and making those community connections and those community engagements. And really, we've hired a social media person, a digital media person, getting out those videos. You mentioned our social media platforms earlier, showing what we do. How we can partner with the community, that we're not out here as some oppressive force, but we're partners with everybody, and really spreading that message and making those connections. And I think rebuilding the trust of the community is huge, which is why we've able to level out. Our current academy class is over 20, or right around like 21 or 22, and then a year ago our academy class was 13. So we're hopefully that's the trend, is to continue that increase. And so again, join therpd.com. We also have a workforce development program. So even if you're not 20 and eligible to take the test yet, we'll help build you through that, help build you into becoming a Rochester police officer. But at the same time, we're pretty stringent on our hiring, because we don't just hire anybody. We want to make sure we're hiring the right people, and we're definitely in a quality over quantity conversation, because we want people to be the right people for our city, not just pass the test. And so that's where the workforce development program is a great program as well. It's great for us to learn about you and you to learn about us that want to be hired here.
So that's the story of where our PD is, and we're talking primarily about Ontario Beach Park. There was a lot of reporting earlier this month after some incidents down to the park, and it's an annual summer destination for a lot of people, including sometimes, as the captain said, teens looking for something to do. They're looking hopefully to make that positive things to do. But for families, our job is not to do PR for the beach. People may know I live in Shalott. I've ridden my bike to the beach. I love living in Shalott. I love the beach. So everybody wants it to be a good place and a safe place to be, and we are talking about how to do that with Captain Greg Bello from RPD. Rich Tantello is Director of Public Safety for Monroe County. County Legislator Aversia Roman's the president of the legislature and represents a district up there, district number 26. We got to take this break. I'm going to bring in Jim Farr from the Ontario Beach Program Committee, and we can welcome some of your feedback in our second half hour when we come back.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Mary Cariola Center, proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson, believing an informed and engaged community is a connected one. marycariola.org.
This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. You ever have one of those weeks where you cannot get straight what day it is or when the end of the week is? Do you feel overwhelmed by work and you're just sleepwalking? That's kind of me. It's been a long half week. Today is a big fundraising day for us. Apparently, I'm just recording everything in the wrong spots. So what you just heard me talking about for next hour, let me correct what's coming up in the next hour. Coming up in the next hour, we're talking about an upcoming symposium, an inaugural symposium aimed at figuring out what to do with a lot of vacant spaces. Big issue in the county, big issue in the city of Rochester. You see Constellation Brands moving downtown. You see a lot of talk about repurposing old buildings that used to be vibrant, not just the Kodaks of the world. And cities across the country are dealing with this. So a symposium next week is going to aim at what to do with some of these spaces. And we're going to talk about what those folks want to do next hour. So that's what's coming up here. Let me bring in James Farr. Jim is the chair of the Ontario Beach Park Program Committee, who's on the line with us now. Welcome. How are you?
Good, Evan. Thanks for having us on this morning.
Well, tell us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. See, look, it's not just me, Jim. There you go. Jim, tell us a little bit about what your committee does and how things have been going so far this spring into the summer.
Well, Evan, actually, the committee's in its 39th year, and the genesis of it was after the Tall Ships event in 1984 to celebrate the city's sesquicentennial. Some of the folks that were involved in that, including me, thought that, the idea of it was so great to see all these people down here and have really some positive things going on at the beach. And at that time, there was problems with motorcycle gangs, believe it or not, but things, go on during the years. And so we thought, what a great idea, not just to have, these special events on, occasionally, but to really put together a program that would bring down families and bring down all kinds of people at all times of the year. So we started there and started with doing the Wednesday night concerts. It expanded it to include the Kite Flight, the Harbor Fest, the Lakeside Winter Fest, a number of different jazz at the beach. So we do a number of different things through the year, and it's an all volunteer committee, mostly all Shalott residents, and we've had a great run of it, and hopefully what we're doing is helping to supplement what the police officers and everybody else has down here does, just to make it a really safe spot for everybody to come. And this year, the crowds have been great for the concerts. We've had 2 in right now. The first one was huge. Most of whatever disruption there was after most of the concert goers had left. And we had more comments about trouble getting out of the parking lot than we did about, any negative behavior that was witnessed by folks. So, tonight is the Sky Coasters. We're going to have a huge crowd again tonight if it doesn't rain. And then this weekend, Harbor Fest is back, and we're excited about it. We're adding some new stuff this year. And traditionally, we've never had any problems at Harbor Fest, but as many of the events and festivals have done throughout the city, we are, adding that extra layer of having private security in addition to the police. We will be checking bags. It's a little tougher down here than some of the events because you're at the beach and people are bringing equipment and change of clothes and picnics. So, but we are going to be checking bags, and any young people under 18 have to be accompanied by an adult over 25. So we're going to be working through that. We started last year with that, and we're a little more lenient about it this year. We've talked to our security, and we're going to, do the best we can just to make sure everyone's safe. But I don't personally I've lived in Shalott all my life and have no, personal fear. And I agree that, a lot of it is the young people not having anything to do and just, whatever. But normally that last couple of weeks at the end of the school year is the worst if there's going to be incidents, and after they kind of break their social connections and get back to what they're doing in the summer, the amount of activity like that seems to be less, in my opinion.
Well, so Jim, a couple things here, and then I'll take some comments from listeners. I moved to Rochester in 2003, and at the time there was an effort from then county executive Maggie Brooks and a lot of people at the county level. There was a big announcement at the old Irondequoit Mall, and it became Medley Center. And I remember covering the opening of it, and it was some of my first reporting days, and people were telling me as a newcomer to Rochester, well, the malls had all these issues. And over time, as I talked to people, I realized maybe there were some issues, but some of the real grisly stories you heard are probably just urban legends. And what happens is perception becomes reality. Here's the chief of Irondequoit, Rich Santello. He's smiling at me over here. Did anybody hide under a car at the old Irondequoit Mall?
They did not.
I knew it. See? I heard that for years. I mean, and the problem is you get these things attached to you, whether they're fair or not. Now, I am not saying that concerns families may have about the beach safety are not fair. Everyone should want the beach to be safe. What I want to ask you, Jim, is, are you worried about reputation, or do you think, look, people understand there's going to be disruptions at times, but this is a safe place to be. This is a family place to be. Do you feel comfortable with the reputation there, Jim?
I feel generally, and the time I've spent down here and the folks I talk to, I think, and for the most part, people, especially if they come down here a lot, they realize that that's the rare exception and not the rule down here. And as Uversa said, it is one of the few places in Rochester where you see that diversity of people and they're all together in one space and all interacting positively. I also oversee the public market, and so that's my other spot for, where you see that same community interaction. But it's, yes, I mean, but on the other hand, I was down here yesterday with some of the setup for Harbor Fest, and some gentleman came up to me and said, "Well, is there going to be another riot?" And I said, "Well, first of all, it wasn't a riot, and it was 13 to 15-year-old kids. It's not, but you're right. I mean, perceptions are tough, and especially folks that aren't, out in the public and crowds a lot and things, and so we're always trying to make sure, and we're always emphasizing that it's all about safety, and it's all about bringing families down. And as your verse said too, you tend not to have the negative activity when your mother and cousins and grandma are at the site too. So it helps just the more activity we can have down here. We're working with businesses. A lot of the businesses are doing things this weekend in the evening after we close down. Most of our events are over by 9:30. The boat parade of lights on Saturday nights over about 9:30, and then the businesses, many of them are going to have bands and other events going on after that for folks that want to continue enjoying Shalat. So, yeah, I agree with you, Evan. There's no better place to live in the city than down here.
No, I think it's great. And Jim, I'll take my journalist hat off just for the moment and tell you, I think your committee is doing a great job. And having been down there with family plenty of times, you really are. I know you're working hard at that, and I know it really matters. And I just think I think back, Rich, to all those years ago, and as that newcomer hearing those stories, I want to go back and figure out, when did those rumors start? How did they actually get in the public consciousness? Did it drive you crazy as a police chief hearing that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. So we had a Citizens Police Academy, and an individual came in, was perpetuating that message. So I spoke to the individual, and I said, "Tell me who told you that story." Mm-hmm. He says, "Somebody in Buffalo." So we were never able to really get to the point of who started all of this. And, of course, it just grows, because many of the instances that people were reporting or reflecting on did not occur. And it's a tough thing to change. And unfortunately, that property was beautiful, and now it's being resurrected, but in a much different way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story of a lot of malls, but it was a beautiful space for sure. And I will just say again, I'm not doing PR for the beach. If there's a riot at the beach park, it will be covered by every journalist in town. Riot is not the correct word for what we've seen there. That doesn't downplay, Captain, what we've seen.
That's part of the issue, is perception and reality. With social media especially, there's fights all over the place at different things. Go to a Bills game. Walk through. No offense, I go to the Bills games all the time, but right, walk through the parking lot, walk through, and you don't hear, one fight at the beach or one fight at like Lilac Fest, for example, this year. There were 0 issues at Lilac Fest that made their way to the police. Security was there. I saw social media videos, I think, of 1, maybe 2 fights that lasted maybe 10 seconds before security intervened, removed the people, and that's the end of it. Mm-hmm. There's fights at schools growing up. There's fights everywhere. Like, that's just the nature of the world sometimes. And but a cell phone video all of a sudden gets pushed around, or some social media accounts that go off police scanner traffic versus the scanner traffic of the 911 calls versus what's actually happening up there, and it gets extrapolated and into these giant events of something that lasted maybe 30 seconds and there was no issues. And so it's separating fact and reality, and then you've got this 24-hour news cycle. So now you've got reporters broadcasting live from the beach of, this is the site of a massive fight, and then they show a cell phone video where there's 2 people fighting. So it's a struggle sometimes of that perception and reality. And I understand the media wants to sell, right? That's how they exist. And social media, everybody wants clicks. Everybody wants to be the next YouTube star. Everybody wants to be and so that strive for attention sometimes takes over of what the reality of the situation there actually is.
Or every headline you see attached to a video, legislator destroyed by colleagues, and it's like a 5-minute clip, and the person's like, "Yeah, I disagree with you."
Yep.
Like, I guess they're destroyed now.
Yes.
So
right.
Some of that hyperbole can seep into the public consciousness. So,
anyway, the destroyed comment. Then what did you just do to those legislators involved in that? And so the same thing. What we're dealing with Charlotte or any of these other festivals or things going on is the responsibility level of you're driving patrons away from this area. You're driving people away from these festivals that are safe.
Yeah, I continue to try to echo those sentiments. I said it on the legislative floor. I've told it to my colleagues, right, before they start an interview. Talking about this topic. Please don't scare people away from our beach. This is a vibrant part of our community. We want to continue to invest in that space, in that area. Therefore, we need individuals, whether it be, and when I talk about investments, I talk about public investments, private investments, right? We want businesses to continue to open. We just have the upper deck that just opened in that space that was vacant for a while. We want to ensure that those communities, that community in particular, continues to thrive, and the reality of the perception of safety. We don't want fights at all, right? We want a safe community. But when young people aren't engaged, we have to think about ways that we connect them to the resources that they need. So honestly, as soon as I heard what happened, I called President Miguel Melendez and I said, do you know...
Of Rochester City Council,
yes.
yeah.
I said, do you know if Pathways to Peace, by chance, could or would be able to support this area? There has been an increase. He went back, he asked the questions, and there has been an increase of Pathways to Peace up there. They've made the commitment to say that they're going to go and walk around more. They're going to connect with RTS, right? And I think it's really a community response. And you asked how the county is involved. We have representatives from the city, but really it's a community looking at the problems and the situations. And I appreciate Jim saying that it's difficult when your grandmother is there to not act inappropriately.
Yeah.
Because I think about my grandma, right? And my grandmother's in the crowd. I'm going to act a little different probably. So really just want families to be there. And the community to be able to hold each other accountable. I've had conversations with legislators who have children who are in high school who, may have had conversations with their kids about senior skip day. No, you're not going. You're not going. And it really is the responsibility of families to hold ourselves accountable.
All right, let me get some feedback from listeners. Robert in Fairport first. Been waiting. Hey, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I think that one thing that has to be done here is that trying to avoid a Maplewood Park situation last summer. Just about a year ago, it would have been in late July, you had the two killings there. You had 40 to 50 shots fired from 9 guns. I'm not even sure that anybody was actually charged with anything after that event. It just seems to me that if you're going to have events at the beach, you need to have a fence and you have to have metal detectors.
Metal detectors and a fence. Robert, thank you. First of all, Captain, nearly a year later, anything you want to add about what happened in Maplewood last year?
Yeah, so our major crimes detectives are continuing to work on that one. We're still seeking the arrest of one individual. Niger Johnson is still wanted. Working with our partners on trying to locate him, but he's, as of this point, been very elusive. Continuing. So if you know where Niger Johnson is, please let us know. We'll come arrest him. But we're continuing to work on that case. And, unfortunately, that's an incredible tragedy. One of the things with the beach, and I know there's fencing set up, I believe, for the festivals when they occur there, but that's a pretty large area. It's a lot. And we want people when they go to the beach. So we have a huge presence there that we don't necessarily have at other parks because there's way more people at Charlotte Beach. And so our presence and our observations and it's not just our physical presence. We have an online presence with our crime analysis center that's constantly watching some of the disputes, watching, building intelligence. And so alerting us to some of these problems before they even occur. Because you'll see somebody on, for whatever reason, some of these kids like to broadcast their lives and their beefs on social media live of I'm going here to do this, and we can intercept that. Because we do monitor a lot of stuff that's open, and our crime analysis center does that. And so I think fencing, that's a lot of manpower and to do that. But I think our presence up there will hopefully continue to serve as enough deterrence to prevent a tragedy like Maplewood from occurring.
Rich, does that make sense to you? I mean, that idea about that geographic area?
Absolutely. If you worked a special event or was in charge of a special event, being able to manage, if you will, the crowd and still make it accessible and maintain the fun and the atmosphere, has been mentioned about the beach area. So if you think about closing that off and trying to manage all of that, it just takes away from the aspect of being able to enjoy the beach.
All right, let me get Philip in Brighton next on the phone. Hey, Philip, go ahead.
Hi. I think it's so important in this conversation that the stakeholders in all this are very active on social media to correct some of the perceptions that spread wild on there. You're talking about the Irondequoit Mall. Yeah. Rumors and things. I think I've seen plenty of evidence. I mean, Twitter's a cesspool now, but I see plenty of evidence of an organized political effort in order to put out a lot of hyperbole about our cities are unsafe. These people are running amok, and a lot of that is very thinly racist as well. But all this misinformation, or everything is blown up, as you mentioned before. A small incident means, the park was burned to the ground,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And they will take the same video and they'll run it 100 times, or they'll selectively edit it, or bring in material from other events or situations that happened before in order to drive this narrative that our cities are unsafe, that we need to have police action or greater crackdowns. I mean, we're seeing that right now with the ICE protests and things as well. I think information is the cure to this. I'd love to see, the police very active on social media to correct the record, to counter some of these narratives that are out there, because, as you mentioned, I mean, it's a fight with some kids. I mean, it's not like people are dying and the park's on fire and all this other stuff. So having the truth out there to combat the misinformation is just crucial.
Well, I appreciate that, Philip. And let me start with legislator Aversia Roman, president of the Monroe County Legislature. Philip's worried that there's almost a political motive to the way people talk about American cities. Do you see that?
Yes. So I'd say I think sometimes because of the clickbait culture, I guess I would call it, individuals are more prone to appreciate drama than a video, if you will, that's connected to something positive. And unfortunately, as was mentioned before, media has the tendency to look for those headlines. And unfortunately, as was mentioned by Jim, these incidents do not happen when these events are occurring, typically. But it gets connected to the event, right? When I looked at some of the reporting, they're like, fight at concerts at the shore. That's not what happened in this incident. Concerts at the shore happened, wrapped up, and then there was an incident at the beach with teenagers who probably weren't there for this particular act. So unfortunately, I think it's just a part of culture. I don't know if it's politically motivated for our cities, but it's become a part of the social media culture in which individuals would prefer to receive as many likes, as many views. And unfortunately, as a community, that's the stuff that people are looking at more.
And Philip, I'm just going to address one other point before I kick our last question over to Jim Farr. It's the better part of a decade ago that the late Assemblymember Joe Arrigo was on this program. He grew up in Rochester, I think on Carter Street. He told me that on this program that he would not go back to his old neighborhood in an armored car. And I said, I will go back with you. We can take a walk. I understand there's higher crime numbers in certain parts of our city. That's true. But there's also really great families in every neighborhood that just want to do whatever that you want to do. You want to raise kids, have a safe life, build a community. And he was convinced that you couldn't walk on certain streets without getting shot immediately.
I would love to respond to that. I'm a product of North Clayton Avenue. Most individuals think of that community. I mean, I'm not sure what community this particular individual is talking about going back in an armored vehicle. But there is a lot of beauty in that neighborhood as well. It's a neighborhood that is struggling, needs more resources, has been disinvested in. But I would say that, as an individual who grew up in that community, my mother still lives there. My grandmother lives there, the grandmother that keeps me in check at the beach. I would say that as I mentioned with the beach, every single community will only be disinvested in when the community itself does not fight for its inclusion.
So I
go
if
ahead,
I could jump
Captain.
in
Yep.
real quick.
Yep.
I encourage people to make those decisions themselves. So if
Yep.
you Google Rochester Police Open Data Portal, we have one of the most robust open data portals of any police department pretty much in the country. All of our crime stats are public. It's a searchable portal where you can draw a box around a neighborhood.
And it updates pretty quickly. I want to tell you that.
It does. Make your own decisions versus
We'll
looking
use
at
that.
what other people steer you to, because people steer you both ways. There's people that'll call the city a cesspool and violence, and
Yeah.
there's people that'll also tell you how safe and perfect certain neighborhoods are, which are not necessarily the case. It's some struggling neighborhoods. So make those decisions yourself. That's the nice thing about being the police department. Sorry, being around two political figures are involved in, right? One represents the county executive,
Rich is
one
going
from the county
political.
legislature. Well, so as a police department, we remain apolitical. And so our data is out there, the facts are out there, and we encourage people to make their own decisions versus allowing, no offense, Evan, a radio show or some of the other sides to tell you what you should think on those stats, but go look yourself.
We're multi-platform now, Captain. And as you're going to hear the music, so Jim Farr, just tell people what's the next exciting thing that's happening at the beach. Go ahead, Jim. 20 seconds.
The Sky Coasters tonight, and then all weekend, Harbor Fest, Boat Parade of Lights, all kinds of great things. Sand sculpture, come on down and enjoy it. You'll love the beach. You'll love it. If you haven't been down for a while and seen the marina and the improvements, come on down.
Jim, I know how passionate you are, and I do appreciate your time. Have a great summer. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Jim's chair of the Ontario Beach Park Program Committee. And the captain is right, by the way. There's always nuance. I don't know anywhere that I would never walk on foot in Rochester in the middle of the day. I do know there's a lot of families and neighborhoods hurting from higher crime and deserve better lives and neighborhoods, and we should all be investing in that. Captain, thank you for being here.
Of course, thanks so much for having me.
Captain Greg Bello. Rich Tantello, Director of Public Safety for Monroe County. Great to see you, sir.
Great to see you. Thanks very much.
And the President of the Monroe County Legislature, Versha Roman. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
More connections coming up.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from GreenSpark Solar, serving the greater Rochester and Finger Lakes regions for over 20 years. GreenSpark Solar is dedicated to helping people power their homes and businesses with local solar power and battery storage backup. More at greensparksolar.com.
One of the best ways to support WXXI is to become a sustaining member. You give a little bit each month, and your contribution renews automatically every year. Sustaining members provide a stable source of revenue for your favorite programs. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a sustaining member at WXXI.org.